Hello, and thank you for listening to the NYCEFT podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Fine, certified emotionally focused therapist, supervisor candidate, and director of public outreach on the NYCEFT board. Whether you're a professional looking to deepen your knowledge of emotionally focused therapy, in a relationship and want to strengthen and repair your bond with your partner, or just want to stay connected with what's happening in the NYCEFT community, there'll be something of interest to you in this podcast. I'm really excited to share with you my conversations with guests that include EFT trainers and supervisors and other professionals from around the world. So be ready to learn something new. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the NYCEFT podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Fine, certified emotionally focused therapist, supervisor candidate, director of public outreach on the board of NYCEFT, and having a private practice here in New York. And to help us launch the very first episode here today, we're here with Dr. Zoya Simakhodskaya, Vice President of NYCEFT and Executive Director of NYCEFT. And who better, Zoya, than to take us through the early beginnings of NYCEFT and walk us through the rich history as NYCEFT unfolded over the years, and to talk with us today also about the current vision for NYCEFT and some of the initiatives that we're working on. And Zoya, I know there's so much to your background and your credentials, but I just wanted to take a moment before we come back to you just to introduce the show a little bit more and tell listeners what they can look forward to in some upcoming episodes and segments. So we really see this, the NYCEFT podcast as an anchor for the NYCEFT community, where it's a central place for us to come together, for clients, therapists, supervisors, and trainers to share ideas, to learn how to improve relationships, and for all of us to grow together. And to that end, some episodes and segments that we can look forward to will be training opportunities for therapists and supervisors. We'll be having episodes on issues of diversity and race and systemic racism, something very important to us here at NYCEFT. We'll be doing segments on newly certified therapists and supervisors, segments on supervisors running supervision groups, and segments on ongoing projects and initiatives through NYCEFT. And of course, we'll be tapping into the rich talent pool here in the NYCEFT community with supervisors and trainers to tap into their wisdom and expertise, to bring that to the community for clients and therapists and supervisors to learn more about EFT and how to improve relationships. So with that said, Zoya, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional background? I know that you're very well known here to the community at NYCEFT, in NYCEFT, but what would you like people to know about you now that you have the floor?
Well, first of all, thank you, Jeff, for for the idea of the podcast and all the work you're doing to create it and promote it. I'm I'm very excited. So I really appreciate all the work and the contribution to the board and the NYCEFT community. I think where I'd like to start, and that is something sort of, I think we all start even as a therapist, it starts with who we are and where we come from. And I think I've come to EFT and who I am at NYCEFT through sort of my roots as a immigrant, a Jewish refugee from the former Soviet Union, growing up in a country, in a culture where connections and groups and collective was really, really important. And I think having gone through the journey and becoming an American and yet holding on to integrating that identity with my identity as, someone who came from Ukraine and grew up in a big family, I think it's not surprised that I was so attracted to EFT. I got trained very traditionally, psychoanalytically, psychodynamically, but always loved working with families and groups and couples. Worked at the Bellevue Psychiatric Emergency Room for many years, training people. So I always enjoyed that kind of team approach and learning from each other, but always felt sort of not grounded in terms of my work with families and couples until I discovered EFT and Sue Johnson in 2006. I went to a conference on trauma and attachment, and here in Harlem at my alma mater at City College, and here it was. I saw the video and I heard about the model, and it's just made sense here, made sense in my heart.
That's such a common experience, right? Like so many of us come to EFT and it just makes sense. And it's just like, I'm home.
Right.
It just really makes sense.
Right. And there suddenly was a method that can be learned and can be taught. And I was just hooked from the beginning. And then I became certified, I became a supervisor, and loved spreading it and teaching it and helping other clinicians learn it. And then sort of by, universe kind of putting people together, I was invited to teach in Russia. And that was the beginning of my EFT trainer journey. So now I teach for the Russian community of EFT, and for Ukraine, which is also could do a whole other podcast about that, about my experiences of coming home. Mm-hmm. But I think the NYCEFT really has become for a long time my professional home, and it is something that's very dear to my heart, a place where I make incredible connections and feel passion for growing the community. So I'm really happy to continue. As I was thinking back about how we started, I think NYCEFT in a way had started even before Sue Johnson came to New York for the first time in 2008. There was a very small group of people who began traveling to Ottawa, to San Diego, taking the externship and coming back and connecting with each other and saying, hey, we need to grow. Let's try to figure out how to do core skills, etc. And then in 2008, Sue came to teach the first externship through Ackerman Institute for the Family. And I think it had a different name at the time, but currently, which is when I took it, and a lot of people that I know took it, who are part of the core group at NYCEFT. And after that, someone named Shelley Dell, who was a supervisor, EFT therapist supervisor from Massachusetts, who had a strong connection to New York, began to train many of us to come and do supervision once a month, and we all would go to her. And she is an incredible therapist and human being who was so passionate about establishing EFT here. George Fowler was on his way to becoming a trainer, but I'll let him tell his story. Right. And so the community began to grow. I remember sort of talking to George and saying, hey, we need to have seminars. And he was like, go ahead and start it. And I did the first quarterly seminar where that was a series where a therapist presents and a trainer is a discussant, or supervisor is a discussant, and people started coming to see those. Then I don't like learning alone, so there was an idea of video Sundays, sort of like, let's come and watch training tapes together. So we did have more events. And in about 2011, I believe, Shelley and George offered to NYCEFT, the International Center for EFT, to host EFT Summit.
Mm.
And in order to do that, it's a big conference, we needed to have an organization, we needed to have money, seed money, and Shelley and George and Parker Stacy got together and formed a nonprofit organization, NYCEFT, as it
NYCEFT was
exists.
born, officially born.
NYCEFT was officially born, but the way it was born is we have 28 founding members who put up seed money. Each of us put in, at the time, $1,000 to create this fund that can help us put on a conference. So they're on our website, the 28 founding members, Shelley Dell at the head of it. And that's how NYCEFT was created. And we had a very successful EFT summit that people still talk about all over the country and all over the world. There was enormous amount of volunteer labor. Everybody came together. It was so much fun.
What year was that?
2012.
2012. Wow.
Yep, 2012. We had over 400 people who came from all over. We had amazing presentations. We highlighted some of our local people. It was really fantastic. And we continued to do training events for therapists, master classes, smaller events, quarterly seminars, video events, fundraisers, getting together for networking. And then in 2015, we decided to do another big conference, Sex and Attachment Coming Together, and which I think we had 500 people come. And again, it's the community really coming together and putting such a good opportunity to have, learn more and connect with each other.
You really, you and 27 other people really tapped into a need, that there was a real vision you all had that said, if we do this, that like if we build it, people will come. I mean, people just were coming to all these trainings in big numbers.
Yes, and I think it has to do with EFT model and focus on relationships and attachment and effectiveness, that it works. And also with us needing each other, needing the community to keep growing, because this is, it's professional, but it's also personal. EFT has changed who I am as a person and relationship. It has helped me to be more open, more vulnerable, connect with people in a different way. And once you get the bug, you want to spread it, you want to in a good way. Yeah.
I have the bug. That's why I'm doing this podcast.
Exactly.
And so from 2015, you had the sex and attachment big, what do you call it? A seminar or
a conference?
Conference, yeah.
Conference, yeah.
And from there, what happened from there?
So from there, I think we continued to be the home, the hub of the EFT community in New York. And also oftentimes we have initiatives or we do things that then other people kind of follow, new ideas, new kind of, inviting other trainers to come to New York and present. And we're, sometimes people say you're a tough crowd in a good way. We ask sophisticated questions and we keep learning. And I think as we continue to grow, I think that's when at some point you said, what do? I do a lot. Sometimes I have the fantasy of, taking that hat off and giving it to someone else, but I'm really love the community. And like I said, it is my professional home. But in my role, I oversee a lot. I initiate things. I, work with, not just the board members, but all the coordinators. We have volunteer coordinators of different events that we try to use the energy of our members, people from bottom up, right? If somebody has an idea, they come to me and I say, all right, this sounds like a good idea. What can we do? How can we help you?
I know that I feel this way, but I'm sure I'm speaking for so many when I say that you are so instrumental to what happens at NYCEFT, and your hard work, your determination, your vision is so important for how we keep moving forward. So it's just my way of saying thank you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I, can't do it by myself. I think feel so lucky and fortunate who are people around me who support me, who help me execute the vision, and for with whom I don't like working alone. I like collaborating and share ideas. And there's so many people, like three trainers here, George Fowler, Ilana Katz, and I. We collaborate, and the board members and new people who come along. One example, years ago, one of our founding members and supervisors, Judith Kellner, had an idea. She feels very passionate about helping veterans and their families, and she said, let's create a project where veterans and their partners would receive pro bono EFT, right? And so she had this idea, and she made it happen. She engaged volunteer EFT therapists. She has given them supervision and support and kept track. She did assessments of these couples, and that's the kind of members we really love and appreciate, and the kind of ideas. And now Judith has stepped down after working so hard for so many years, and another supervisor, Irina Wen, has taken over the project, leading this project, and she's someone who works with a lot of military families and veterans. And that also has been one of the sparks for me personally to want to bring EFT into the VA system or other agencies that work with veterans. So that's something NYCEFT has been doing and supporting, both financially through co-sponsoring supervisions with different VAs, doing different trainings. So that's something I wanted to share in terms of what we have been doing. In addition to continuing offering master classes and training events in general around EFT to our members, I'm hoping that we will do more in terms of access to the public and spreading the word for public. We have members who do Hold Me Tight workshops and other workshops, and we really that's our next growing edge to do more of that.
This is sort of a nice segue to talk about the overall vision for NYCEFT, because a lot of these initiatives that you're talking about really fall under the overall vision. Can you talk a little bit about the vision for NYCEFT currently?
Yeah, I think that initial vision of improving relationships, whatever they are, right? Using the science of attachment theory, of science of emotion, to have an impact. One client, one couple, one family at a time, and helping our therapists to do better, to do a better job. I'm still learning. I'm a trainer, but my learning never ends, and I don't think it will ever end. But the mission is really sort of I mean, it's simple, but it's complex. We believe in relationships, and we want that to use this amazing model to keep doing that in the world, and obviously in the local greater New York area. We also, and this is something that has become a real focus over the last year and a half. I mean, it's been longer, but since the murder of George Floyd last May and the pandemic, but that, as we know, throughout the country, but also the world, it really brought, even as so unfortunate, but as always, the focus more to the way racism and oppression by the dominant white culture has impact on the discrimination, as well as indigenous people and people who are in the minority group. It's I don't want to go, going too much into it, but I think we're all aware of that so much more. And it had an impact on me, and it had an impact on NYCEFT as an organization.
And even on our trainings, we've had opportunity. We were doing, really for the first time, the externship online and the core training online. And we had opportunity to grow around this area of systemic racism and
right.
our lack of awareness of how we were hurtful to people in those trainings. And, right. You really spearheaded a learning opportunity for us as assistants and supervisors and trainings by bringing in consultants, having us get involved in workshops and trainings to look at our own ways that we relate to our whiteness and how that affects us in our work.
Right, and that actually started even before that. Thank you for bringing that in. That pretty early on, that May, June, we came together as a board and talked about sort of what needs to be done. And one of the first things that we did, we hired Dr. Buki Kalawali and Tony Hudson of Relationship HQ to be our consultants to the board, to help us look at how the racism and impact of oppression has affected us on personal, and how it's has affected us as a system, and how we can change that. So that's been, over the last year, we've been working on that. And out of those meetings where, like you said, it's personal and it's professional and it's systemic, and this will continue. Some of the initiatives, some of the ideas that we're implementing, and let me even back up a little bit. I think EFT as a model has a lot to learn about incorporating and really rethinking how we view race, culture, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, all the ways in which oppression and marginalization can affect individuals, families, couples, their view of their sense of safety in the world, their sense of, belonging and being included. And I think as EFT community, we have not done a very good job before. We maybe used the right words and we said it, but a lot of people, Black, people of color, Indigenous, minority, clinicians, even if they would take our trainings, they often wouldn't stick because they experience microaggressions, they experience not being seen and did not feel like they belong.
I
And
think we've
we,
had to get more granular with this because, and you can help me with this, but I think what we've learned is that it's not enough to say, attachment is universal.
right.
We have to go deeper, get more granular with the people that you've just mentioned, Black and brown people, Indigenous people, Pacific Islanders, their actual experience, and be explicit in how we work with that.
Mhm.
And the attachment theory of the model, while enormously helpful, it wasn't taking us as far as we needed to go.
Right, and it also applies to us as white people. I think we carry our own um, um, responsibility and lack of awareness sometimes about how our identity impacts who we are, how we are in the world, how we relate. So one of the things that I've learned, and keep in mind that this work that we're doing, the anti-racism work, the work on, learning, adapting, changing EFT the way it needs to be changed, that it will benefit all of us.
Yes.
That we have so much to learn from our colleagues of color and colleagues who come from experiences of oppression, and I have my own sort of part of my identity that has experienced that, and at the same time, being a white person in America, I also bring something. So if I can, this will benefit me, I mean, on the personal level and the community level. So that really is one of the things that also motivates me.
Mhm.
And I think, we're going to continue to offer, to change our trainings. I know the 3 trainers are very committed to that. Our supervisors, many of our supervisors are working, taking, learning, looking at, doing our own work internally. We're inviting other people to help us learn. We take feedback. I think one of the most generous things that many of our colleagues of color or from LGBTQ plus community, they have been so generous in giving us their feedback, sharing the ways in which they had not felt included or belonging, and how not seen, and how it could be better. We're so appreciative of that, and we hope to continue being responsive.
Yeah, so
As,
clearly,
yeah,
we're giving this a lot of time here, which it really shows how important this is to us and how committed we are to doing this work and doing better. Yeah, and so was there anything else that you wanted to share about the history of NYCEFT or about yourself? Anything else that you would like people to know? Any other initiatives that you want people to know?
well, nothing comes to mind. I'm sure I'm going to forget things, and there's so many.
I will
So
have more
amazing.
episodes.
Exactly. There's so many amazing people who have their side of the history that would be good, because history is like has come, it's from my perspective, and there are many perspectives. Um, I think one of the things I love about this community is the energy in it, and I would welcome anyone who has idea or something interests them. For example, we haven't announced it yet, but soon in September, we will have a seminar on adapting Hold Me Tight to the groups for couples through Montefiore Hospital. A couple of our colleagues who are trained in EFT, bringing this model to the community, marginalized community, people of color, and looking at where the EFT was falling short, and adapting it. And I'm really excited to learn from that, because I think we could do more. I mean, we have somebody in our community who keeps encouraging, what about groups? What about sort of doing community events? Because not everybody can afford to be in private practice. Or how do we, schools, how do we bring access to more people while we're at the same time looking at ourselves as an organization? So if you have ideas, bring them to us. Every time we've recently run the created affinity affinity supervision groups just for people of color, and NYCEFT co-sponsored it. Somebody had an idea, we made it happen. So I would really hope that if you're listening and watching this, and you have an idea, come to us. We are ARE, accessible, responsive, and engaged.
Exactly. And I want to just highlight how important I think that is, and agree with you that, not only for therapists, supervisors, trainers, ideas from clinicians, but also if you're out there in the NYCEFT community, if you're in a relationship and you have an idea about how we can be helpful to you, this podcast is also for you. We want you to be able to learn about relationships and also to get what you need from us. So let us know. We'll have ways to contact us on the homepage of the NYCEFT.org website. And my email will be there. Zoya, you'll have a way of being contacted, so you can look for that information. And we want to hear from you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. Any last words, Zoya?
No, I mean, it's summer. Hope you, whoever you are, whether you're watching it now or later, find a way to connect with people, have fun, and keep learning.
Wonderful. Zoya, thank you so much for helping to launch the NYCEFT podcast here with this wonderful history and talking about the vision and initiatives. It's been such an honor to have you here and talk through this with you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Jeff. Thank you for doing it.